but the knock-on effects into other industries probably also starting to get into the billions here. So we are not talking small fry, and it is going to be a massive problem for this economy going forward.
As riots sweep through KwaZulu-Natal and parts of Gauteng, what will be the impact on South Africa's economy, and particularly on the retail sector and the supply chains that feed these heavily populated areas? Well, joining me to discuss is Mike Schussler of economists.co.za. Mike, what do you think has been the scale of the costs that have been inflicted on the South African economy?
Well, I think it's a huge cost. I've worked out a few numbers. We know that there was about 200 shopping centers that have been looted and or burnt, destroyed, or at least partly destroyed. Based on the data that we have from 1993 to now, we know that that cost of the total 2,300 shopping centers that we have in South Africa, when we built them, equals about 160 billion Rand in today's terms. So if we look at that, then that says to me we've lost about 8.7% of our shopping centers. Using then an average of all the shopping centers for this, then it's around 14 billion Rand. The actual losses will be for the buildings, the infrastructure around it, obviously, and so on. But that is not the real problem. The problem is that the stuff that was looted, now normally you would have a shop, and that shop would have 5 or 10% or times more stuff in it. But if we look at the Stats SA data on inventories in the South African economy at the end of the first quarter, we know that the final product inventories were about 635 billion Rand. And 8.7 of that then gives you about 56 billion Rand. So that's a huge amount of money. And then we have in-between inventories, intermediate inventories, such as a tire that was burnt that's still going to go into a car. That's only 148 billion, but still, we'll see impacts there. So ultimately, I think that's where the real damage has been done in the looting and the so on the money side. Then the closure of the N3. Now we have to remember something about the N3. It is a major artery. It is the artery of the South African economy. There's 6,000 trucks a day that move on that highway every day. This is not small fry. Transnet has got about an 8-9% market share only. That's in the container side. But even they have been impacted, calling force majeure. And we see they also impacted on the coal lines. So coal is not being exported at the moment, or it is, but it's from the stockpiles that we have there. We'll have to rebuild. So that's also going to have an impact. The goods traveling on the N3, we believe, is about 120 to 150 million Rand a day of goods. So if you've got that, then those goods don't go to where they should be, where it be Joburg or Durban or even further afield in Lusaka or Harare.
Enjoying this analysis? Click here to sign up for our 30-day free trial for more content from the CIA.
So this is a major problem for everyone. And then on top of that, we have delays now for 4 days that the road hasn't been open. Other roads have been sporadically closed. But on top of that, we know that the COVID restrictions on the borders, making it having truckers take a longer time to go to the border and take the goods through. So the whole impact on the countries around us is also going to be quite detrimental to them, whether it is Zambia or Zimbabwe, doesn't matter. It is going to be problematic for them. I think the whole supply chain is in a real mess. And I know you're going to ask me a question about that just now. But the point is that I'd like to make, if I add the numbers there, I'm saying that with 4 days worth of closure, we already could have lost 600 million. Now, it doesn't sound like billions, but that's in the pipeline. And then that means that those goods that are going to factories, for example, on just-in-time things for, say, a BMW or a Ford or whoever, they can't get all the goods because a car today is made out of 1,800 goods that comes from various places, various countries. And if that supply chain interrupts, it really is detrimental to that factory. And therefore, the car cannot be delivered, and you ruin your reputation on that side too. So the fact of the matter is, I think buildings and inventories and everything, around 70 billion. Daily losses, I would say around 150 billion for the transport industry, but the knock-on effects into other industries, probably also starting to get into the billions here. So we are not talking small fry, and it is going to be a massive problem for this economy going forward. Then obviously you have to look at the insurers, the costs that they're going to carry on the trucks that were burnt and everything like that. Again, the truck is 1.5 to 2 million rand, but the goods on the trucks are very often 10 times the value of the truck. So if I tell you about 40 trucks were burnt, and we assume most of them were full, then we just on the truck side, we're saying to ourselves that's about 60 million. But if it's 10 times that, it's 600 million, worth of goods destroyed. So the big impacts are going to hurt this economy still, but the numbers are just part of a small part of the bigger picture.
So, Mike, it's obviously very concerning for those manufacturers who depend on global supply chains. But I think even more cogent is the threat to food security and also to medicines. Do you see those supply chains being impacted, and how might they be able to recover? How long will it take for them to recover?
Well, first of all, I think they will be impacted. I think some of that impact will be negated with stocks that people have. But it's very difficult in today's world to say that we've got enough stocks for weeks and weeks on end. So you probably get to the point with some goods would only have 3 or 4 days worth of stock. So they start running out now. There may be legislation with other goods, but it is really problematic. And yes, we run the risk of fuel shortages. We run the risk of food shortages. We run the risk of medicine shortages. We, in fact, already know that some hospitals haven't received oxygen for the COVID cases now. We've also seen reports, and I'm quite certain that they're true because they come from other businesses, that some foodstuffs are not being delivered in certain areas, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, where most of the rioting took place. The truck drivers are also scared to go into certain townships like Soweto at the moment and deliver retail fuel. Now, we've also got, 3 refineries down, nothing to do with the riots, and now the 4th and the biggest refinery in South Africa is also down. So we're now in a situation where we've got the Natref refinery, that's a small old refinery in the Northern Free State, and another refinery in Secunda delivering goods for us. So I think certain areas shouldn't feel the impact, but these refineries don't only just do petrol, the byproducts go in everything from margarine to paint, and it will have an impact. And the refineries also do things like gas for heating and cooking and that type of stuff. So those are essential ingredients in the whole economy. Restaurants cook on gas, for example, and we know that this will have an impact. The worldwide supply chain, let's just do a backwards thing, is already in a dire straits because of COVID and the Suez Canal stories, and there's too few containers. So the cost of renting a container today is 400% up on a year ago. We haven't seen that. I haven't seen that in my lifetime. That's internationally, nothing to do with us. Now you got that container parking in our harbor and can't go anywhere. It's just costing that exporter or importer extra money every day. And then if it's not being moved to Gauteng, it means that person is paying extra for it. And then there are disruptions in the supply chain that are very horrific. I've never seen distribution centers burnt down. Now, these are some of the retail distributions, but even transport companies that do very many things, RTT, value, transport, and others, are seeing their warehouses being looted. And that means you have to not only fill up when the ship eventually lands and can deliver the goods, or you can, into Durban, it needs to go to another warehouse now because the one is damaged. You have to find other space. It's a very sophisticated system that our supply chain is. It's partly integrated into the rest of the world. So, you've got to find trucks, you've got to find containers, which are difficult. You've got to find new warehousing opportunities. Then you've got to find ways to move it. All these things are really very sophisticated, impacted. And once I get this sort of shock, it's not just a week or two and it's back on schedule.
Mike Schussler, thank you very much for joining us back on the CRA channel. Let's hand over to you, our viewers. What has been your experience of these riots? Please do comment in the comment section below. And if you're watching this video and you're concerned about the future trajectory of South Africa, you might want to consider becoming a client of the CRA. There's a link to our 30-day free trial in the description below and in the pinned comment, where you can sample all of our reports and online briefings for free for 30 days before becoming a full paid-up member of the CRA. My name is David Ansara. This is the Centre for Risk Analysis. Until next time, take care.